Alright, so we're going to talk about the new Joker movie that came out starring Joaquin Phoenix, directed by Todd Phillips. And I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as I can, though I am going to delve into just a couple little things about the movie that stood out to me, but I'm going to try not to ruin anything for anybody in this video. And also, I'm not going to talk about any of the controversy or anything political that's happening surrounding the movie Joker. I actually already made a video about that, so you can check that out if you want to hear my thoughts on that. I'm just going to talk about the film itself as a film, as a movie. And one thing that I really want to point out is just Joaquin Phoenix just absolutely kills it, absolutely kills this movie. Whether or not you want to say that, it's negative, or whether or not you want to say that it accurately represents the Joker of DC Comics, it doesn't. But he absolutely owns this movie. He owns the screen in every scene, and he isn't about all but about 2 minutes of this movie he is in. This movie is locked on him the entire way through. So you are on his journey. He plays a character named Arthur Fleck, and you see the situations that he's stuck in and how he has to deal with this living with a mental illness. And the movie lets you know right off the bat that yes, he does have mental illness, and he's on, it doesn't really describe the medications or what type, it leaves it vague. There's a lot of things actually in this movie that are left vague for the viewer to interpret, and I absolutely love that about this movie. I love when art does that. I hate when it's, well, I wouldn't say I hate, it depends on the circumstance, but a lot of the times when things are spoon-fed to you to the point where this has to mean this 100%, it's not as fun or as engaging to me as leaving things up to the viewer. And there are a lot of things in this movie that are left up to the viewer, dealing with so many things as far as his history, so many things dealing with his mental illness, and the things he does, is something that he has attributed to him actually part of his mental illness, or is it something else, or, the visions that he has, just like anybody would, especially lonely people, would daydream about things that they fantasize that would bring them joy or bring them happiness. He fantasizes about, people that he admires, or fantasizes about people in his life, and you feel that, and it makes sense in the context not just of the movie, but also just in the idea of somebody being lonely, because if you've dealt with loneliness or dealt with, depression or mental illness of whatnot, you would have these same type of fantasies that he's having, and that kind of leads you into sympathizing with him to an extent. Now, when things come to a close and he is who he is, he becomes the Joker, as we all know. Again, it's left mostly up to viewer interpretation, but it gets to the point, there is several tipping points where you sympathize with him, and then you start to be fearful of him. And it kind of goes with this back and forth, and it's not a, coin flip change. It really is this gradual kind of slow unraveling throughout the movie where you really feel for things that are happening to him, and then you see how he responds to certain situations, and you're like, whoa, wait a second, let's take a step back. But he has nobody to really cling to talk to. He lives with his mother that he's taken care of. She's kind of in a very feeble state, both mentally and physically, so he's stuck doing a lot with that. He's stuck at a job where he works at a clown, where he's not really respected and really treated as a clown. And then in the background of this film, we also have this whole kind of social thing happening between the rich and poor people of Gotham City, which I thought was one of the greatest aspects of the movie, because it's not focused on directly, because the movie is focused 100% on Arthur Fleck, aka the Joker, the entire film. So anything that's happening with society or in the city or anything like that is happening around him. It's in the background of the movie, and it's not focused on. And I really like how what happens in the background of the film directly relates to Arthur Fleck. However, it is a completely separate entity, but kind of flows together in a very fluid way. And it's kind of hard to explain what I'm talking about without going into spoilers, but all I can say is one of my favorite aspects of the movie is everything happening in the background. And I'm sure that upon rewatching it 2 or 3 times, I'm sure there is more and more and more that you will pick up going on in the background of this movie. I think one thing to note is that I think a lot of people that maybe are just looking for a comic book movie that focuses on the Joker as the Joker character that we all know from the comics, and obviously there's been multiple interpretations both in comic book form, animation, and in film, but with this movie it's straight up, you could essentially take the name Joker, the name Gotham City, and Arkham is seen in the movie. You could take the names of these things and change them to something else, and this wouldn't relate to like DC Comics whatsoever. So this is not, there's no Ace Chemicals that Joker falls in. There's no anything like that was in previous incarnations in the comic or whatnot. So in a way, some comic book fans might be mad or upset because this isn't really the Joker that we would all think of coming from the comics or coming from the animations or from Heath Ledger or Jack Nicholson. This isn't that kind of Joker. This is a completely its own take, and some people might be mad that it might call it like a cash grab or might call it like something just slapping the name Joker on it when really it's not the Joker. And I could understand that argument, but to me, I honestly don't care because the movie is so good and I'm not as attached to the lore of the comics of Joker as I am to other things. So for me, that didn't really bother me at all. I really love this interpretation. Whether you want to call it an interpretation or just something completely different, it's just a guy that calls himself Joker. Whatever you want to call it, I really, really definitely recommend this movie. I definitely enjoyed it. And now, I'm not saying it's the greatest film of all time or anything like that, but I also don't think it's this big, it should have been this big controversial thing that it is, because people were talking about the violence of this film, and honestly, this film isn't really that violent. It's more psychological. It more makes you think. It more makes you think of like how much you're willing to sympathize with somebody like this. Also makes you think, how much would you be willing to take in that person's situation, and what dealing with all these horrible things in life can drive somebody to do. Because it's not a movie that makes people go, to Joker extents. It is situation after situation after situation with no light at the end of the tunnel, where you are constantly kicked into the dirt and there is no way out except for this kind of cathartic embrace of insanity to go towards, which he definitely does in the movie. And the movie itself, it is an R-rated film. However, like, I feel like it's barely R-rated. Like, the only thing that makes this R-rated, he says fuck like maybe 4 times in the movie, and there is a little bit of violence, mostly just with gunshots. There's not like there's I guess one scene that deals with violence outside of gunshots, but for the most part it's very quick. It's very the gore, there's no gore, not really. I mean, it's just the natural amount of blood that would come out from, it's very realistic. The movie's very grounded in that way, so it's more of a psychological aspect than anything else that makes it dark. It's not really the violence itself. So if you were thinking this is going to be some sort of like, I don't know, like some kind of dark, disgusting, deep, violent film, it's not that at all. And honestly, take 1 or 2 things away and this could probably be a PG-13 rated movie, in my opinion. I don't know, I watch a lot of dark, violent stuff, so maybe I'm desensitized to that fact, but for the most part, I didn't really see this being too much of an R-rated film. So one thing I do want to touch on that might be a little bit of a spoiler is the Joker's laugh in this film. And I'm going to say this, so I'm saving this could be the last point I really talk about, so if you want to stop the video here, that's fine. I don't really consider this a spoiler, but it might be, depending on how you want to look at it, so take that as you will. So the Joker's laugh in this movie, the one that Joaquin Pheonix had come up with, it is said that it is an involuntary kind of response from his body. Whether he's in like negative situations or high anxiety situations or situations that he can't handle or maybe shouldn't be in, it's just his body reacts by laughing. And it's usually in very inappropriate situations. It makes sense for the situations that they're in. They're not random, because usually he's going through a very stressful moment at the time where his laugh comes. So he laughs uncontrollably, and he has to tell people this, and he has little cards where he tells people that, like, I'm really sorry, this laugh is uncontrollable. However, what I really like about it is that we never really get this confirmed whether or not that this laugh is actually a medical condition or not. And I really like that is left to the viewer interpretation as well, because a lot of times the laugh is kind of like a replacement for crying. It seems like he's in these stressful situations, and where one would maybe like break down and cry, instead he's laughing. And I really like that because it was a very like involuntary response to a horrible moment. However, if going forward into the movie, back towards the end of the film where he, you know, finally embraces and becomes his true self, which would be the Joker, the laughter shifts to the point where now he's laughing cathartically. Now he's laughing after he does something he enjoys, as opposed to laughing after something that is stressful or high anxiety inducing. And I really, really like that transition and aspect, and it's not like directly focused on. I mean, we directly focus on it in the beginning to let you know that his laughter comes from an involuntary response, but to see the laughter change coming from that to changing after, say, he kills somebody and starts laughing, I really, really like that aspect. It's a nice little touch that they threw in there. It's a nice little visual response that we can get to his change in mental state. And I think it works really, really well. It's a very simplistic thing. It's a very simplistic choice, but it works so, so well. And I really appreciate the filmmakers for putting that in there, because I think it really shows you the character of Arthur Fleck very, very well, and his transition. And oddly enough, this film almost kind of reminds me of the movie Her. Completely different in tone, completely different in intent, but Joaquin Phoenix playing such a lonely character that's looking for some sort of outlet and some sort of communication and some, you know, idea of being noticed in some way. Joaquin Phoenix just plays that kind of character so, so well, and I know, like, there's rumors about him being a pretty weird guy in real life. I know he's like kind of introverted. I don't really know much. I don't look into like the personal lives of actors or celebrities very much, but he definitely must either be just an absolute brilliant actor, which he is, or dealt with similar things in his life, dealing with loneliness or isolation or something like that, to be able to play these parts so well. I mean, it's just something I fully commend him for. He's absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, I'd recommend seeing the movie. Like I said, it's a dark movie. It delves into more psychological things and what drives a person to be somebody like the Joker. So obviously, if that's not your cup of tea, if you're not looking for a dark film, if you're not looking for a film that focuses on a villain or a, you know, a dark, downtrodden character, then obviously it's not for you. So you know what kind of movie the Joker is going to be before you see it. So if that's your kind of film, if you like that kind of dark character study experience, then definitely this film does not disappoint. If you're not into that, then you probably won't like the movie. And if you're just going for a comic book DC Comics Joker, you're not going to get that here. This is a completely different kind of Joker, so don't expect DC Comics. Though obviously there are a couple little nuggets, little Easter eggs in there that if you are a comic book fan that you'll notice and you'll think it's pretty cool, but the movie doesn't focus on that as a whole. So I don't know, let me know your thoughts below if you saw the movie Joker. Again, I don't really give ratings to films. I'm not really sure what kind of rating system to give. I'm still kind of new at doing movie reviews on YouTube as far as on this channel. But yeah, let me know what you think of Joker down below. Thanks a lot for watching this video, guys. I really do appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up if you want to. Subscribe if you want to. I'll talk to you next time.